Soy has this plant-based estrogen, isoflavones. In 2017, about 255,000 women will get diagnosed with invasive breast cancer this year, 75% of which is cancer fed and fueled by estrogen.
Under the bright lights of the grocery store, everything looks innocent. Rows of shiny packages, colorful boxes, bottles labeled with words like natural, light, heart healthy. You walk the aisles, tossing items into your cart. A granola bar here, some crackers there, salad dressing, peanut butter, ice cream, maybe a frozen dinner or two. And without realizing it, you've just bought soy, not once, but over and over again. It's in the bread, the cereal, the cookies, the snacks, the sauces, the drinks, the things you'd never expect. It's in the meat. It's in the dairy. It's even in the foods, trying desperately to look like they're not processed at all. Because soy doesn't just sneak in, it saturates. Soy is the most widely consumed ingredient in the modern American diet, yet most people couldn't recognize a soybean if it hit them in the face. It's not because you're unaware, it's because they don't want you to notice. Soy has hundreds of aliases. It goes by names like soy protein isolate, soy lecithin, textured vegetable protein, hydrogenated soybean oil. Sometimes just vegetable oil. It slips past the radar because it's meant to. It's not there because it makes food taste better or because it's good for you. It's there because it's cheap. And over the last 50 years, food manufacturers have quietly replaced real, nourishing ingredients with soy. Real butter? Too expensive. Use soy oil. Eggs? Swap in soy protein. Animal feed? Douse it in soy meal. Soy is in your protein bar and your hot dog, your peanut butter and your infant formula. And no one told you, because if they did, you might ask why. Why does one ingredient, originally grown as animal feed, end up in nearly every processed food we eat? Why is it in our cosmetics, our supplements, our candles, and even our printer ink? And why is the government spending billions to keep it there? This is not just a food story, it's a story about control, about what happens when a humble crop becomes an empire, about how something that wasn't supposed to be eaten by humans ends up shaping the health, hormones, and futures of entire generations. And it all starts with a lie, that soy is harmless, that it's just a bean, that it doesn't matter. But if soy is in everything, what else have they hidden from you? Welcome to Evil Food Secrets. Let's begin. It didn't start in your kitchen. It started in the barn. Soybeans first arrived in the United States in the early 1800s, but back then, no one thought of them as food. They were odd little things. High in protein, yes, but bitter, dense, hard to digest, not something you'd grind into flour or sprinkle on a salad. But when farmers started feeding soy to their animals, everything changed. Pigs bulked up faster, chickens laid more eggs, cows got fatter in record time. It was a miracle, cheap, efficient, profitable. And suddenly, soy wasn't just a crop, it was a gold mine. Soon, entire farms were converted. Fields once used for vegetables and grain were now oceans of soy. Not for people, not yet. This was feed. But in the boardrooms of food companies, a different thought took root. If soy could bulk up cattle, what could it do for a box of cookies? What if it could stretch out the shelf life of mayonnaise, or mimic the protein in a sausage for half the cost? The idea was simple. Feed it to the animals, then feed it to the humans. And so it began. By the 1940s, soy was creeping into breads and soups. By the 60s, it was in baby formula. By the 80s, it was in fast food. And now it's in you. Not because it's better, not because it's needed, but because it's cheap. A leftover feed crop became your daily diet, and almost no one noticed. They called it the miracle crop, a bean so powerful it could feed nations, cure hunger, cut costs. It was high in protein, low in fat, cheap to grow, easy to store, and on paper, it looked like magic. Soy became the poster child for a better tomorrow. Nutritionists praised it, doctors recommended it, magazines printed smiling families, eating soy burgers in pastel kitchens. It was the food of the future. But what they didn't say is that raw soy contains toxins, natural chemicals that block nutrient absorption, disrupt digestion, and mimic hormones. That traditional cultures only ate it fermented, aged into miso, tamari, natto. Never raw, never isolated. But in America, fermentation was too slow, and nuance, too expensive. So we ignored it. We took this crop meant for soil rotation and animal feed, and we engineered it into food. We stripped it, processed it, bleached it, pressed it into oil, spun it into protein powder, and shaped it into something that looked like nutrition. The result was soy milk, soy cheese, soy carne, soy formula, and it sold because the messaging was relentless. Cheap became healthy, industrial became natural, and a bean no one had eaten 50 years ago became something everyone was told to love. But here's the thing about miracle crops. They usually come with a cost, and when a food is too good to be true, it probably is. They called it heart healthy, plant-based, safe, but they forgot to mention it acts like estrogen. Soy contains compounds called phytoestrogens, plant chemicals that mimic human hormones. They fit into your estrogen receptors like a stolen key, and once inside, they start rewriting the script. In women, they can throw cycles off balance, trigger mood swings, affect fertility. In men, it's even more alarming. Studies have shown drops in testosterone, shrinking muscle mass, lower libido, and in some extreme cases, gynecomastia, male breast growth. In infants fed soy-based formula, the exposure is even worse. A single day's worth of soy formula can deliver hormone-disrupting compounds equal to taking multiple birth control pills every single day. And the long-term effects, we're only starting to understand. But the early signs aren't good. Thyroid issues, early puberty, lower sperm counts, developmental delays. Animal studies have shown soy-fed rats born with reproductive malformations, mice with altered brain chemistry, even decreased lifespan. But somehow, soy still wears a health halo. Why? Because the warnings are buried, dismissed, laughed off. Anyone who questions soy is labeled anti-science, or worse, paranoid. But your hormones? They don't care about marketing. They care about balance. And when you flood your body every day with hormone-mimicking chemicals, something changes, something shifts. And by the time you feel it, it might already be too late. It started with good intentions: feed the nation, protect the food supply. But somewhere along the way, it turned into something else. The US government has poured over $45 billion into soy subsidies. That's not a typo. 45 billion. Why? Because soy is an economy crop. Cheap, easy to grow, resilient. And during times of war, drought, or disaster, it keeps shelves stocked and people fed. Or so they say. But feeding people is one thing. Pushing soy into every corner of the grocery store is another. From 1995 to 2020, taxpayer money helped turn soy from a feed crop into a full-blown food group. And not just any food group, the most hidden, most quietly consumed ingredient in America. It's in your cereal, your salad dressing, your granola bars, your bread, even your vitamins. Because when something is subsidized, it becomes too cheap to ignore. Food companies look at soy and see one thing: profit. And with the government footing the bill, why stop? Why fry in beef tallow when you can dump everything in soy oil for a tenth of the price? Why make candy with cocoa butter when soy lecithin does the job for pennies? But here's what they won't tell you. Those subsidies don't go to small farms. They don't protect families. They pad the profits of massive industrial soy operations, the ones flooding your food with estrogen-mimicking filler, all backed by your tax dollars. And they don't just want you eating soy. They've made sure you can't not. They didn't just put soy in your food. They made you want it there. This wasn't an accident. It was a campaign, quiet, strategic, relentless. It began with doctors, sponsored studies, headlines in health magazines. Soy lowers cholesterol. Soy reduces heart disease risk. Soy is the smart choice. Next came the food labels, heart check icons, plant-based protein, cholesterol-free, and then the packaging. Soy snuck into protein bars, into shakes, into cereals marketed as clean, smart, and healthy. Granola loaded with soy oil, crackers held together with soy lecithin. They knew what they were doing. Because if they had just told you the truth, that soy was a cheap filler, an industrial byproduct, an estrogenic compound, mostly used for animal feed, would you have bought it? Of course not. But dress it up with a wellness halo, tie it to words like clean eating and heart healthy, and suddenly, It sells. Even athletes were targeted. Soy protein isolate became a staple in shakes and meal replacements. Never mind the hormonal effects. Never mind the studies on testosterone suppression. The campaign worked. Soy became more than an ingredient. It became a belief, a health food, worshipped without question. And now, you see it everywhere. Not because it's nutritious, not because it's safe, but because marketing told you it was, because big food whispered it into your diet until you didn't notice it was there anymore. They told you it was better, cleaner, kinder, a burger that bleeds but comes from beans, milk that pours but never saw a cow. Welcome to the world of fake food. At the center of it all is soy, texturized vegetable protein, soy protein isolate, soy oil, soy lecithin. Different names, same seed. Soy is the backbone of the plant-based movement, but not the wholesome, farmer's market kind. This is the lab-grown, chemically processed, genetically engineered kind. Impossible burgers don't come from the earth. They come from factories, engineered yeast, modified soy, and a splash of heme, the synthetic molecule designed to mimic blood. Soy milk? It's not milk. It's filtered bean water, thickened and sweetened, then sold as a healthy alternative. But here's the thing. Soy isn't just processed. It's hyper-processed, stripped down, reassembled, filled with additives to mask the taste and boost the shelf life. And it still carries those phytoestrogens, still disrupts hormones, still affects thyroid function. And yet, it's served to millions, marketed as the future, because it's profitable, because it's cheap, because it checks the box of sustainability, even if the process to make it is anything but. You weren't told the risks. You were sold the story. That fake meat was progress, that soy milk was purity, that this was the way forward. But real health doesn't come in a lab coat. And if the ingredient list reads like a chemistry exam, maybe it isn't food at all. It's in your fries, your chips, your salad dressing, your granola bars, but you'll never see it on the front of the label. Soybean oil, the invisible ingredient behind America's health crisis. It didn't start that way. Once upon a time, we cooked with tallow, lard, butter, real fats from real animals, fats that humans had eaten for centuries without the sky falling. Then came the switch. Fueled by fear, sold as science, saturated fat became the enemy. And in its place, a so-called miracle, vegetable oil. But this wasn't olive oil. It was soybean oil, refined, bleached, deodorized, pushed into every processed food imaginable. And what followed wasn't better health. It was inflammation, obesity, a tidal wave of heart disease. Studies now show that soybean oil may disrupt genes in the brain, trigger metabolic syndrome, and increase the risk of diabetes more than even sugar. And yet, it's still everywhere because it's cheap, shelf-stable, tasteless, and profitable. They call it a neutral oil, but what it really does is quietly, slowly, wear your body down from the inside. It replaces the fats your body needs with ones it can't recognize. And the result isn't just weight gain, it's broken hormones, foggy brains, a system constantly inflamed. Soybean oil is the background noise of modern disease. You don't see it, you don't taste it, but it's always there, waiting in the next bite. It started with a promise. Stronger crops, fewer weeds, bigger yields. They called it progress. But what we got was Frankensoy. In the 1990s, Monsanto introduced genetically modified soybeans, engineered to survive their flagship herbicide, Roundup. The plan was simple: spray everything, kill the weeds, let the soy live. But nature doesn't like shortcuts. And what was left behind wasn't just a more efficient harvest, it was a chemical-soaked bean, one coated in glyphosate, a weed killer now classified by the World Health Organization as a probable human carcinogen. But the warnings didn't stop them. Today, over 90% of soybeans grown in the US are genetically modified. And glyphosate? It's in the air, the water, the soil, and your food. It disrupts your hormones, damages your gut, mimics estrogen in your cells, and it doesn't wash off. It lingers in baby formula, snack bars, cereal. This isn't the soy your grandparents knew. It's not even the soy eaten in Asia. This is a different beast, engineered in a lab, grown for profit, and saturated in poison. And you don't get to choose, because it's everywhere, built into the food chain, and every bite brings just a little more of it inside you. not by accident, but by design. The first sprays were hailed as salvation. Roundup would fix everything, kill the weeds, save the crops, feed the world. But nature doesn't surrender, and soon the weeds fought back. They grew stronger, thicker, more resistant, and Roundup, the miracle, was no longer enough. So they turned to something darker, dicamba, a herbicide so potent, so volatile, that it drifts through the air like a ghost. One breeze, one shift in temperature, and it's destroying neighboring farms, wilting crops it was never meant to touch. Tomatoes, peaches, peppers, gone, and soy modified again to survive this new chemical. But at what cost? Studies show dicamba exposure is linked to liver damage, hormone disruption, birth defects, and it's not just in the fields, it's on your plate. Because this isn't just about farmers anymore, it's about what's inside your food. The soy in your granola bar, the oil in your fries, the lecithin in your chocolate. Trace it back far enough and you'll find a toxic trail. A system built on chemicals, sprayed on Franken soy, fed to animals, and then fed to you. And under a microscope, what you're really eating becomes horrifyingly clear. DNA altered, cells deformed, residues glowing. You were told it's just soy. But the truth? It's poison with a nutrition label. It was marketed as gentle, nutritious, safe, a mother's choice. But what no one said, what the label never told you, is that soy-based baby formula is industrial byproduct, dressed up as food, and babies never stood a chance. At the height of convenience culture, when breastfeeding was discouraged and canned formula ruled the shelves, soy swept in like a savior. Cheap, easy, shelf-stable, but packed with phytoestrogens, plant compounds that mimic hormones, in amounts never meant for infants. Studies show that a baby-fed soy formula gets the estrogenic equivalent of 5 birth control pills a day, 5, every single day, developing boys with smaller testes, lower testosterone, delayed puberty, girls with early breast development, irregular cycles, hormonal chaos before their first steps. But it didn't stop there. The soy wasn't organic, it wasn't fermented like in traditional cultures, it was genetically modified, soaked in glyphosate, refined, processed, poured into plastic tubs with cartoon bears on the front. We fed them a lie, and told mothers they were doing the right thing, because the truth would have shattered trust, shattered profits. And now, we live in the shadow of that decision, with children born into imbalance, and no idea why. This is what happens when the food industry plays God and uses infants as test subjects. It's not just your food, it's your dog's kibble, your lipstick, your vitamin C. Soy isn't just an ingredient anymore. It's an environment, a residue, a shadow that touches almost everything you touch. Because once Big Food realized how cheap and versatile soy was, they didn't stop at burgers or baked goods. They kept going. Soy ink now prints your books and newspapers. Soy wax scents your candles. Soy protein isolates bulk up your supplements. And your dog? He's eating kibble filled with soy meal, soy flour, soy oil, all ground into pellets and sold as premium pet nutrition. No wonder allergies, joint issues, and mood disorders in animals are on the rise. Soy lecithin, a byproduct of soybean oil, slips into everything from peanut butter to mascara. It stabilizes, emulsifies, extends shelf life. Even your multivitamin, yes, even that, is likely held together with a soy-based binder. And you had no idea, because the labels don't scream it. They whisper it, in fine print, in chemical code, and they hope you never stop to read. But now, it's not just food, it's your home, your skin, your medicine cabinet. Soy has saturated the modern world, not because it's healthy or helpful, but because it's profitable, and no one told you to look. In the East, soy was never meant to be eaten like this. In ancient China, Japan, and Korea, soy was respected. But it was never the main course, never the filler, never the secret weapon in processed food wars. It was fermented, aged, transformed, miso, natto, tamari, tempeh, rich in probiotics, eaten in small amounts, treated like medicine, not a meal. Because the ancients knew something we forgot, raw soy is toxic, high in enzyme inhibitors, full of phytic acid, loaded with compounds that block mineral absorption and mess with your hormones. So they found a solution: fermentation, a slow, careful art that breaks down the anti-nutrients, unlocks the nutrition, balances the effect on the body. But that's not what we're eating. We're eating factory sludge, unfermented, unnatural, unquestioned, soy protein isolate, harina de soja, soy oil, soy lecithin, all processed at high heat, stripped of nutrients, flooded with chemicals, nothing like the ancient tradition. And while Western scientists try to convince you that soy is the secret to health and longevity, Asian elders, the ones who actually live that long, rarely eat it, not in the form we do. Because they remember soy was never meant to be center stage. It was a background note, a whisper in the diet, not the chorus. But in the West, we turned it into a scream, and we're still pretending we can't hear it. Soy hides in plain sight. You might think you've avoided it. No tofu, no soy milk, no Impossible Burger. But it's there. It's in your bread, your granola, your salad dressing, your protein bar, your multivitamin. It doesn't say soy on the front. It never does. It whispers from the back of the label, in fine print, in code. Soy lecithin, soy protein isolate, hydrogenated soybean oil, textured vegetable protein, mono and diglycerides, natural flavor. They're all code for soy. And it's not just what you eat, it's what your food eats. Chickens, pigs, cows, raised on soy feed, which means even your soy-free steak carries traces of it. So how do you escape it? Start by reading, really reading. Turn the box over, ignore the front, the health claims, the smiling wheat stalks and green labels. Go straight to the ingredients. If you see vegetable oil, assume soy. If it's cheap, shelf-stable, and processed, it probably has soy. Scan your pantry, your fridge, your makeup drawer, your pet food. Begin cutting the noise. It's not about being perfect, it's about awareness. Replacing one thing at a time. Choosing butter instead of margarine, coconut aminos instead of soy sauce, whole foods instead of packaged ones. The more you learn, the louder the pattern becomes. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it, because it's everywhere. But now, you know how to look. It was never just a bean. Soy became the lever, the shortcut, the loophole. They called it nutritious. They called it efficient. But behind the slogans, behind the science, was strategy. Because when you control the food, you control everything. You control what people crave, what they think is healthy, what they feed their kids, what fills their shelves. You control their weight, their hormones, their mood, their fertility, their ability to focus, to fight back. And when a society is tired, overweight, estrogen-drenched, and dependent on cheap food, no one asks questions. Soy wasn't just a crop, it was a campaign, a silent reshaping of the modern diet. One filler at a time, one subsidy at a time, one label at a time. Now it's in everything. And we told ourselves it was progress. But if we don't question it, if we don't stop to read the ingredients, to understand what's happening, we're not eating food anymore. We're eating a formula. One designed for profit, one designed for control. This is where we are now, but it doesn't have to be where we stay. You can fight back, not with protests, not with rage, but with awareness, with a plate of real food, with a decision every time you buy, cook, eat, or feed your family. Because every meal is a vote, and you deserve to know what you're voting for. If this video opened your eyes, even a little, share it. Comment below with your experience. And subscribe for more investigations like this. Because the truth, they buried it in a bean. But we're digging it back up, one video at a time.